It started with a sinking feeling in my chest, a gut instinct that whispered something wasn't right. I hadn't touched that specific credit card in months. It was supposed to be for emergencies only, locked away in a drawer behind stacks of old receipts and spare keys. But somehow, a notification popped up on my phone for a first-class ticket to Rome. That's when my pulse quickened. I froze. The card was still where I left it, so who the hell used it? I didn't panic. I've learned that silence, when used wisely, speaks volumes. My silence was my answer. I let the transaction sit there, untouched, unreported, just observed. It wasn't the first time Ethan had crossed boundaries, but this time it was different. This wasn't emotional neglect or gaslighting. This was theft. He broke me first with his indifference. Now he was bold enough to steal from me. He thought I would stay. Again. See, Ethan never truly saw me. I was nothing to him but a convenience, a resource. While I built the foundation of our life brick by digital brick, he lounged in false entitlement. And now he thought he could fly to Europe with my money, unnoticed. He underestimated the very skills I used to protect our lives. He never saw it coming. That's the part that almost made me laugh. He planned it all, or so he thought. Multiple bookings, hotel upgrades, even shopping stops along the way. He didn't know that the card was enrolled in a cybersecurity detection program, one I personally helped develop in partnership with a federal task force. Every swipe, every location ping, every merchant ID was automatically flagged. The moment he landed, the system quietly lit up. I watched it unfold like a digital crime thriller. While he sipped champagne in business class, I opened my laptop, logged into the back end, and mapped his journey like a forensic puzzle. Florence, Milan, then Barcelona, designer stores, rooftop, bars, boutique hotels. I saw it all. I found the messages too, emails confirming his itinerary, receipts forwarded to a burner account, and a few conversations that hinted at a woman meeting him in Paris. Oh, he betrayed me in more ways than one. But here's the twist. I didn't react. Not yet. Because revenge, when done right, is never loud. It's calculated, strategic, deliciously quiet. Stories of betrayal like this one don't end with screaming matches or broken plates. They end in courtrooms and mugshots. He betrayed me. He stole from me. And he thought I wouldn't fight back? Oh, he had no idea who he married. You know, I used to cry myself to sleep. She cried in silence, night after night, wondering how love had turned into something so cold. But now I was done crying. I was done being deceived. I was done being polite. I wasn't going to just survive this. I was going to make it unforgettable. My name would be the one he muttered under his breath in regret, and when she finally left, it wouldn't be with tears. It would be with power. People always assume betrayal looks like cheating or yelling, but betrayal wears many faces. Sometimes it smiles while stealing from your wallet. Sometimes it packs designer luggage with your credit and your trust. And sometimes it thinks it's 3 steps ahead until it realizes you've been watching the whole time. He didn't just steal my money, he stole my dignity, but I was taking it all back. The truth came out one transaction at a time. I logged everything, created backups, built the digital paper trail with timestamps and GPS logs. I didn't need a dramatic confrontation. I needed proof, so I showed him the proof, not in person, but in data, in silence, in court. Every click was a piece of the puzzle. Every swipe told the story, and I was the author now. And just when I thought I had seen it all, another alert came in. This time he booked something under a different name, a luxury villa on the Amalfi Coast. He thought he was smart, but I was smarter. I smiled, closed my laptop, and picked up the phone. The next phase wasn't digital, it was legal, and it was coming faster than he could pack his Louis Vuitton bags. I didn't need to chase him across Europe. I had something far more powerful, access. While he wandered through cobblestone streets, pretending he was untouchable, I was in full control. Every transaction he made, I could see in real time. The software I'd helped create was doing exactly what it was designed to do: log, flag, and alert. It was as if karma had its own algorithm, and I was holding the dashboard. Most people would have gone straight to the police, but I knew better. You don't strike while emotions are high. You wait, you gather, you build. I started compiling every single receipt, every login, every GPS ping. I time-stamped his hotel bookings, his international calls, even the Wi-Fi networks he connected to. While he posed for pictures in front of cathedrals, I was building the case that would make him wish he'd never touched that card. He broke me. First, and now he was going to see what it meant to betray someone who knows how to fight back without raising her voice. My silence was my answer. There was no screaming, no texting, no accusations, just data. Cold, hard, traceable data. And trust me, digital betrayal leaves fingerprints sharper than any crime scene. He was sloppy. I was methodical. He thought I would stay. Instead, I was preparing for war. The best part? He kept bragging online. Instagram stories, geotags, little flexes for people who didn't know the truth. and I let him. I needed the trail to stay warm. I watched him buy a $5,000 suit in Milan. I watched him reserve a yacht tour in Nice. Every time he tapped my card, I smiled, because each charge was another nail in the coffin of his defense. He was digging his own hole, first class. I forwarded the evidence to Chloe, my lawyer, who nearly dropped her phone when she saw the scope of it. "This isn't just theft," she said. "This is fraud. This is criminal." She connected me with Agent Keller, who specialized in financial crimes and had worked with our cybersecurity platform before. I gave them full access. Everything Ethan did became part of a federal case, one he didn't even know was brewing. She planned it all, and this time, I was the she. Every step I took was deliberate, strategic, measured. I wasn't reacting. I was orchestrating. While Ethan drank champagne on balconies, I handed over digital blueprints to people who knew how to bring a man like him down. And still, he had no idea. He probably thought I was home, crying. She cried in silence, right? Well, not anymore. Funny how betrayal makes you sharper. I used to doubt myself, shrink myself to keep the peace. But now, I was alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Every screenshot, every email, every chat log was fuel. He betrayed me, but this time, I wasn't just walking away. I was walking ahead. And he was still living in a fantasy where I hadn't changed. Poor fool. The deeper I dug, the more I saw. He didn't just take money, he took pride in it. He thought he deserved it. That's the part that stung, the entitlement. Like I owed him this luxury life. Like I hadn't carried him through years of lazy ambition and hollow promises. I was nothing to him until I became a threat. That's when it got real. That's when the mask fell. Nobody believed her. That's what I imagined they'd say if I hadn't had the receipts. But I had them. All of them. Down to the flight confirmations and the fake alias he used on one hotel check-in. I was already 2 steps ahead, and I hadn't even revealed my cards yet. I wasn't chasing closure. I was building justice. Quietly, completely. And then, one night, I saw a message pop up. He texted me from a rooftop in Barcelona. "Miss you. Can't wait to tell you all about this trip. Wish you were here." Oh, the irony. I stared at the screen for a long time, then saved it. Not for nostalgia, but for evidence. Because soon, everything he built on stolen time and money would collapse. The moment I handed over the last batch of evidence to Agent Keller, I knew there was no turning back. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice. We weren't talking about a petty thief. We were dealing with someone who thought he was too clever to get caught, but he never saw it coming. That was the beauty of it. He was still out there, sipping espresso and swiping my card, completely unaware of the storm closing in on him. Agent Keller moved fast. He looped in the Financial Crimes Division and confirmed that Ethan's actions met every threshold for federal charges: wire fraud, identity theft, unauthorized access. Each offense stacked like dominoes, and it wouldn't take much to knock them down. Chloe helped tighten everything legally, prepping the case with the precision of a surgeon. Every move was intentional, every detail was airtight, and I stayed. Quiet. He thought I would stay. That's the part that always sticks in my throat, as if I'd sit home in pajamas crying while he flitted across Europe on my dime. But my silence was my answer. It was louder than any scream. I let him believe the fantasy, let him think he still held control, but behind closed doors, I was. Meeting with attorneys, federal agents, and cybersecurity analysts. It wasn't rage, it was strategy. He broke me first, and now I was watching the pieces come together. Legal paperwork, arrest warrants, subpoenas. I remember sitting across from Chloe at her office as she looked at the file and said, "He's done. He just doesn't know it yet." And I nodded, not with joy, but with resolve. This wasn't revenge for the sake of pain. This was protection for myself, for my future, for every woman who's been gaslit into silence. I found the messages he sent to another woman, too. As if the financial betrayal wasn't enough. He called me boring, said I'd never leave. She laughed, said I was probably too weak to notice. I read it all, every disgusting line. And still, I didn't react. I filed it, saved it, passed it on. Because this wasn't just personal anymore. It was legal. He was about to learn what it means to play dirty with someone who knows the rules. Nobody believed her. That's what they always say when women stand up with evidence. But I didn't need anyone's belief. I had proof. So I showed him the proof, not with words, but with action. The official complaint was filed. Ethan's name was now in a system he couldn't charm his way out of. He thought he was slick, untouchable, but every photo he posted, every item he bought, became part of a case that would unravel his whole life. And oh, the irony, when he came back, acting like nothing happened. He walked into the house like a king returning from conquest. He even had gifts, cheap ones, like souvenirs would erase what he did. He hugged me, told me stories about Rome, about a vineyard in Tuscany. I let him speak. I even smiled, because I was recording every word, every self-incriminating detail. He confessed without even knowing. She exposed him, not on social media, not through a screaming match, but in a sealed envelope addressed to federal prosecutors. That's power. That's clarity. That's how you deal with betrayal when you're done playing small. And as I stood there, watching him talk about his epic trip, all I could think was, you're already caught. You just haven't felt the handcuffs yet. I was deceived, yes, but I was also awake now. For the first time in years, I wasn't the woman holding everything together while a man pulled it all apart. I was the woman stepping into her strength, quietly, boldly, deliberately, and I knew what came next wasn't just about closure, it was about consequence. And just like that, the knock came at the door. It happened early the next morning. The sound of fists pounding on our front door jolted him awake, but I was already dressed, calm, waiting. When he asked what was going on, I looked him straight in the eyes and said nothing. My silence was my answer. Moments later, 2 federal agents walked in, badge out, voice firm, and Ethan, he just froze. He never saw it coming. You could almost hear the gears grinding in his head as they cuffed him, confused, humiliated, still trying to piece together how his dream vacation had turned into a nightmare. There must be some mistake, he kept saying, but there wasn't. Not this time. This wasn't some emotional outburst he could brush off or twist around. This was real. This was justice in motion. He betrayed me, and now he was face to face with the consequences. Agent Keller listed the charges like a grocery list. Wire fraud, identity theft, unauthorized use of funds. Ethan kept looking at me, searching for a reaction, for weakness, but there was none. He broke me first, so I rebuilt myself without him, stronger, smarter, and absolutely unwilling to protect him anymore. The moment he stepped out the door in cuffs, something in me shifted. I didn't feel sorry. I didn't feel pity. I felt clarity. This man used my trust like a tool, like something disposable. He stole from me, lied to me, made me question my own instincts, and yet, deep down, he still believed I'd never fight back. That's what burned the most. He thought I would stay, but I didn't. I stayed quiet. I gathered strength. And when the time was right, I exposed him. Every receipt, every message, every recorded lie. The truth came out, not in whispers, but in legal documents and sworn statements. And for once, his charm couldn't save him. The same man who laughed at me behind my back now had to answer to a judge. He begged her to come back. That's what I heard later. From his sister, his lawyer, mutual friends. He told everyone I overreacted, that it wasn't that serious, but it was. You don't get to steal from someone you love and expect them to just forget. Betrayal doesn't get brushed under the rug when it's backed by federal charges and broken trust. She cried in silence for years, they said, and they were right. I had. Quiet tears, silent screams, but those days were over. I wasn't the same woman who let things slide just to keep the peace. I wasn't afraid anymore. He may have gotten away with things before, but not this time. This time, the law was on my side, and I wasn't letting go. Nobody believed her at first. Not about how manipulative he was, how calculated. But when they saw the headlines, the court documents, the mugshot, suddenly the story changed. Suddenly they remembered all the little red flags, all the times he spoke over me, dismissed me, used me. Suddenly they started to believe. And I didn't need the validation. I had something better. Proof, peace, and a plan. The arrest wasn't the end. It was just a turning point, a reckoning. And as I watched the squad car pull away, I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about everything I was about to reclaim, because what came next would be mine. Courtrooms have this coldness to them, don't they? Sterile lighting, stiff benches, and that heavy silence that only breaks when someone's about to lose everything. Ethan walked in wearing a borrowed suit and fake humility, but no suit could. Hide the guilt printed all over him. The judge didn't need much convincing. The evidence spoke volumes. He was done before he even opened his mouth. His lawyer tried spinning it, claimed he didn't know what he was doing, blamed stress, desperation, even me for being too successful. I sat there stunned, not because I believed it, but because I'd heard it all before. Same excuses, different day, but this time, the system wasn't on his side. This time, there were consequences no apology could erase. He pled guilty. Fraud, identity theft, misuse of federal resources. The words came out of his mouth like rocks, heavy, clumsy, forced. He barely looked at me, maybe because he knew the moment. He said it out loud. He couldn't pretend anymore. He betrayed me. I was deceived. And now, the whole world knew it. The sentence hit hard. Restitution, community service, and the cherry on top, the confiscation of all the items he bought with my money. First-class flights, luxury hotels, designer watches, gone, frozen accounts, garnished wages, a bright red stamp on every credit report. That smug grin he used to wear, it vanished. Just like his freedom, I watched as the life he built on lies crumbled brick by brick. Not because I wanted revenge, but because it was justice, the kind that comes slow but hits deep. He broke me first, so I showed him the proof, and now he had to pay, literally and emotionally, for every sleepless night, every doubt, every time I asked myself if I was crazy. The irony? The court absolved me of all financial liability. Every cent he stole, cleared, my credit score untouched, my reputation intact. But even more than that, I walked out of that courtroom lighter, like the weight I'd been carrying, of shame, confusion, silence, finally got lifted, and it wasn't because he was punished. It was because I stood up. People always ask me if I regret taking it that far, if I could have just handled it privately. But here's the thing, he never gave me that courtesy. He didn't think twice before using me, before flying halfway across the world on a lie. He thought I would stay quiet, that I'd protect him out of habit, but not this time. This time, I protected myself. When she was captured in the courtroom camera shot, stone-faced, confident, it wasn't about image. It was about closure. I didn't need to scream or cry. I didn't need to gloat. My silence was my answer, and it echoed louder than anything he could ever say in his defense. Stories of betrayal don't always end in handcuffs, but this one did. And what came next wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about healing, and healing takes you places you never imagined. I used to believe that love was enough to hold two people together. I clung to that belief like a lifeline, even as the silence between us grew louder than any argument. But the day I signed those divorce papers, something inside me cracked wide, open. It wasn't grief. It was relief, because he broke me first. Long before the fraud, long before the lies, he'd been erasing pieces of me for years, and I'd been too numb to notice. People think betrayal happens in a single moment, like a car crash or a scream in the dark. But the truth is, I was deceived slowly, subtly, with everyday dismissals, with love that came with conditions, with dreams I was told to shelf for later. He thought I would stay forever, simply because I always had. But when I looked in the mirror one morning, I saw someone I barely recognized, and I knew I couldn't live like that anymore. The worst part wasn't that he stole my card. It was that I was nothing to him, not enough to protect, not enough to respect. I kept thinking back to all the times she cried in silence, that version of me who swallowed her hurt and smiled anyway, the woman who defended him when friends raised concerns, the one who paid his debts while he shopped in Milan. That woman deserved justice, and I was going to give it to her. I'll never forget the look on his face when I handed him the divorce papers. He tried to laugh it off, acting like it was just a dramatic phase. But when I said my silence was my answer, his smile dropped. That was the first moment he realized she finally left, and she wasn't coming back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw things. I just packed my truth and walked out. That night, I moved into my new apartment. I sat on the floor with pizza and wine surrounded by boxes, and I felt completely free. I thought I'd cry, but all I could do was breathe. Deep, full breaths I hadn't taken in years. No more lies, no more walking on eggshells. Just me, my future, and a strange peace I hadn't known since before he betrayed me. The divorce process itself was surprisingly smooth, probably because he was still in shock from the arrest, the court ruling, and the very public collapse of his image. Nobody believed her, he used to say about women who made drama, but the truth came out, and this time, it came with legal backing. His lawyer tried to negotiate, but I had the upper hand, and I wasn't giving it up. I didn't just sign away a marriage. I reclaimed my identity. Every signature on those forms was a release from guilt, from pressure, from being the emotional mule in a one-sided love story. He begged her to come back, even sent flowers with old photos attached, like nostalgia could erase pain. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My silence was my answer, again. Divorce, for me, wasn't an ending. It was an unearthing, a slow, raw excavation of the woman I used to be, before he thought I would stay and stop shining. I found old journals, recipes I never tried, half-written poems, things I had hidden so deep just to survive with him. So I showed him the proof. Not through words, but by becoming everything he said I couldn't be. There's a strange kind of revenge in peace, not the explosive kind. The quiet kind that says, you don't own a single piece of me anymore. I didn't shout. I didn't fight. I just lived, fully, freely. And every time someone said, you look different, I smiled, because they were right. He never saw it coming, but I had always been one step ahead in spirit. I just hadn't stepped forward yet, but I did. And now that I had taken that step, I knew the road ahead would be mine to shape. Not his, not anyone's, just mine. And little did he know, she planned it all, from the moment she woke up and said, enough. And now that chapter had closed. It's funny how silence can feel like music after chaos. The day Ethan left, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood in the middle of my apartment, and let the quiet wrap around me like a blanket. It was the first time in years I didn't feel the weight of pretending. I was done shrinking myself for someone who never saw me. He thought I would stay, glued to a version of life where I was nothing to him. But my silence was my answer. The first thing I did was reclaim my space. I tossed out the worn furniture he insisted on keeping, painted the walls in colors that actually made me feel something. Deep navy blues, golden yellows, rich forest greens. I turned our dull kitchen into a space that felt alive, like the start of a fresh chapter. Each brush stroke was like therapy. I wasn't just redecorating, I was rebuilding my identity from the ground up. This was my home now, one free of betrayal. Next came the trip. I'd always wanted to see the northern lights, so I booked a solo journey to Iceland. No itinerary, no one else's agenda. Just me, a backpack, and a heart that was finally learning how to beat freely again. There was a moment, standing on the black sand beach, the sky lit up with green fire, when I felt something I hadn't in ages. Awe. Not fear, not doubt. Just that quiet, burning awe. That's when I knew I was healing. Back home, I dove into projects I'd shelved for years. I signed up for a pottery class, started jogging at sunrise, and even joined a book club. I wasn't trying to fill a void. I was creating a life that looked like me, sounded like me, felt like me, the kind of life he tried to bury under his lies. He betrayed me, yes, but he didn't destroy me, and that's something no apology could undo. Oh, and the messages started again. Classic Ethan, suddenly full of regrets. He begged me to come back, claimed he'd changed, said he missed my laugh. But I remembered how I cried in silence while he partied across Europe on my stolen card. I remembered how I found the messages, how he broke me first, and how I showed him the proof. The truth came out, and I wasn't about to erase that chapter for the sake of nostalgia. I deleted every text, blocked every number. Peace. Protected. There's this myth that revenge has to be loud and dramatic. But let me tell you, real revenge, it's walking through your front door and knowing everything inside it was chosen for you, by you. It's waking up with no pit in your stomach. It's sipping coffee in silence without wondering where he is or who he's with. She finally left, and in that leaving, she found power. That's the kind of revenge that echoes. I started mentoring young women in cybersecurity, girls who had stories of betrayal, some just like mine. I told them, you don't have to collapse to be taken seriously. You don't need to fight to prove your worth. You just need to rise. And rising doesn't always mean climbing a ladder. Sometimes it just means standing back up, even if your knees are still shaking. My scars became stories, and those stories became bridges for others. He thought I'd spend years mourning him, but I was one step ahead. I mourned the illusion long before he even packed a bag. The person I missed wasn't real, just a mask he wore well. When she was captured in his lies, nobody believed her. But now, she exposed him. She planned it. All. And she's living proof that women don't just survive betrayal, they evolve through it. Every now and then, I catch a glimpse of the woman I used to be. She's still in there, gentle, hopeful, loving, but now she's wiser, more selective. She no longer begs for breadcrumbs of affection. She demands full meals of respect, and if she doesn't get them, she dines alone with joy. I was deceived, yes, but I was also reborn. Sometimes, it takes a storm to clear the path, and just when I thought I was finally settled, something unexpected happened. Something that would lead to a beginning I never saw coming. It's surreal, you know? The way everything changes without us even realizing it. One day, you're drowning in lies and manipulation, and the next, you're standing in the light. I used to believe that moving on was something that had to happen. In grand gestures, I thought I had to scream my freedom from rooftops. But the truth is, sometimes the most powerful transformations are the quiet ones. My mornings now are filled with a soft peace I never thought possible. I wake up when I want to, drink my coffee without rushing, and take my time deciding what to wear, no one to impress. I used to live my life for him, always adjusting my mood to fit his needs. Now I realize my time is mine. I'm not waiting for someone else's approval to feel complete. That's freedom. That's power. The more I let go of his shadow, the more I stepped into my own light. I traveled more, alone, or with friends who actually cared about me, not just the image of who I could be for them. Paris, Tokyo, Cape Town. I no longer needed a companion to validate my worth. I had been told that without a man by my side, I was incomplete, but I proved to myself that I was whole. I always had been. I just needed to see it. One afternoon, I sat on a park bench, surrounded by the usual sounds of the city, people rushing by, kids playing, the occasional honk of a taxi. I smiled, thinking back to how terrified I used to be of being alone. But now, alone didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like freedom. I realized then that my silence was never weakness. It was a declaration of strength. And then there was the way I looked at myself in the mirror. No longer was I that broken woman who stayed in a relationship out of fear. Now, I saw a woman who had rebuilt herself, stronger, smarter, more whole. I didn't need validation from anyone, least of all the man who thought I would stay. He never saw it coming. He didn't know that in his betrayal, he had unlocked the fiercest version of me. One day, I received a letter from Ethan. He apologized again and begged me to come back. He promised he had changed, but here's the thing, I had changed. I wasn't the same person who would bend over backward for someone who treated me like a doormat. And as I read his words, I realized I didn't need to reply. I had already moved on, already built a life so much better than the one he could ever offer. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just free. When I thought about revenge, I realized something important. Revenge wasn't what I thought it was. It wasn't about holding grudges or plotting payback. It was about choosing peace over chaos. It was about letting go of the hurt and the need for validation. It was about living, fully, unapologetically, and with grace. That's the kind of revenge that really shakes people. I saw myself walking down a new path, one where my worth was no longer tied to someone else's actions. I was no longer the woman who would cry in silence, wondering why I wasn't enough. I was enough. I always had been. Now I wore my worth like a badge of honor, one that no one could take from me. I showed myself that love doesn't come from someone else, it comes from within. With every new step I took, I felt more and more aligned with the woman I was becoming. The woman who embraced every part of herself, the scars, the flaws, the victories, and the lessons. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving, and that was more powerful than any revenge I could ever take. I realized that my true power came from my resilience, my ability to rise after being knocked down, and as I raised a glass to the night sky, surrounded by friends who loved me for exactly who I was, I knew this was just the beginning. The story wasn't over, it was only getting started. And from here on out, I would write the chapters myself.